Kei ngā whitiki o te ki, kei ngā puna o te kōrero tēnā nō rā koutou katoa, nau mai anō ki tō tātou marae. E wānanga hohonu ai tātou i ngā take nui tai ore o te wā, e pākaha mai ana ki a tātou te iwi Māori. Shane Jones, the Minister of Resources, has declared New Zealand open for business and promised that the Coalition's fast-track bill will turbocharge mining. Applications to carve up Papatūānuku in search of waro, coal, koura gold, me te ngako o te rino, iron ore, are waiting for the bill to pass. For more than 50 years, iron ore has been extracted from te tai o Pautini, the West Coast. Hurira wātu ki te rohe o Waikato, and in Waikato on the West Coast at Taharoa, Ngāti Mahuta whānau run the biggest iron sands extraction company in Aotearoa. Iron Sands is owned by Taharoa C Block, who have a 60% shareholding in the company. The remaining 40% shareholders are Melrose Investments. They all have ancestral ties to Taharoa, but whānau opposed to the mine expansion aren't happy. Here's Jodi Ihaka with the story.
Big holes, big business and a big whānau scrap that's created a massive rift in the Waikato seaside village of Taharoa. On one side, the Tūtiao and Kepa whānau.
This is a complicated story because we're airing our dirty laundry to the world and they'll go, Ngāti Mahuta, you're idiots.
We're a staunch family.
The makeup. Oh, shh. Mind the swear words, girl. We're here because we belong here. Hey, we were self-sufficient, least sustained off this land. And I do believe that it's all still here. It's up to us to put the effort into it, to bring it all back. That's what we're trying to do.
Hard mahi?
Big mahi, bigger than what I could have ever dreamed of.
On the other side is Aotearoa Barclay Kerr, the internationally famous waka navigator and rangatira of Ngāti Mahuta. He now finds himself mired in the black sands of Taharoa.
Our tūpuna sailed here on a waka with great faith and knowledge that their navigators knew where they were going to and what they had in store for them. But now everyone wants to navigate this waka, you know. That's the thing. We've got the board that are trying to navigate this waka to a great island of success. But what happens is that everyone wants to be a navigator. The money that we use and the money that we talk about is money that comes from my ancestors' land, and I have to be careful with it.
His cousins claim he hasn't been careful enough. He's rangatira, kaitiaki, and chairman of the trust that owns the land mined. Today, they are all majority shareholders of Iron Sands Mine.
I think certainly that that people have to remember that the mine is operating on our land, and our land belongs to 2,000 shareholders who are the owners of that land, and that we have to understand that there might be a small percentage of those shareholders that mightn't want the mine to continue, but the majority of them do.
The whānau fighters over Iron Sands' long-term plans to continue mining for at least another 30 years. Iron Sands applied to the Waikato Regional Council for 13 new consents.
The best that we can do is to look after our shareholders and, you know, see if the consent processes are agreed to, what kind of conditions they have on it that allow us to do that and maintain our whenua as well.
The Tūtiao and Kepa whānau are opposed to Iron Sands continuing to mine the way they currently do. The whānau believe the consultation process about the resource consents was flawed and unfair. Berna says they just want to be heard.
And it has been a disappointment that it's taken a long time for our whānau to wake up, but they've woken up. And the disappointment now is that our own, who is supposed to be our kaitiaki of that block, doesn't give a shit about the surrounding area.
So sometimes, you know, when you do things well, there's always people who are not happy.
You know, our leaders don't get it, and that is the biggest disappointment, is that we're going to cannibalise ourselves and they don't even believe there's a problem.
Bounded by the lonely hills and Lake Taharoa on one side, by the Tasman Sea and creeping acres of black iron sands on the other. But it was this sand that was destined to bring a new era to Taharoa.
In 1972, the mine was established to provide economic survival. The mine provided a village of homes for workers and their whānau, a community hall, a kura, and education scholarships to Māori boarding schools, and jobs for locals. For you, what was it like growing up here?
For me, Kawhia especially was a place where my grandmother lived, and a lot of my aunties, my older brother lives just down the road and he's got a farm down there, so it was always a place of tribal mana, I suppose.
Aotearoa says his father's teachings led him to steer his whānau forward.
I'd just tag along with my dad. I'd be sitting in these boardrooms and they're sort of listening to what was happening and trying to understand as much as a 10-year-old can as to what was actually being talked about and what those dreams and aspirations looked like.
Did you have any idea at that point how big the business would become? I mean, you know, you are the biggest 100% Māori-owned iron sands mining company in Aotearoa. How does that make you feel?
Well, there's a pride that comes with that. I think it's a pride that comes around understanding how to manage the ownership of your land and understanding how the extraction of iron ore and the returns that we get from the royalties of ore that's loaded onto ships, you know, how we best invest that money as well as look after the interests of our shareholders, who are really the landowners.
But for others, there's regular work available for the first time. A New Zealand Steel representative told me that half the present workforce of 40 on the mining site is drawn from the local population. 20 men earning a basic take-home pay of about $70 a week. The company says there are opportunities provided on the job to gain greater skills, and there's also talk of school leavers from the district being encouraged to take up apprenticeships with New Zealand Steel at Glenbrook. There's even a trend towards returning to Taharoa. 3 former local boys, now tradesmen, have come back to find work where none existed before.
Under your leadership, how do you think the mine has actually helped your iwi?
Yeah, there's 170 or so people that work down there. And I think 140 or 141 actually, I actually all have Ngāti Mahu te whakapapa. So there's 141 jobs, there's 141 families that have a direct benefit from this mahi. Then when we start looking at, say here in Kawhia, our slow reacquisition of places like this, you know, buying this land, building this place that we're having our koro today is, you know, it's another way of stamping. This is our mana. This is the mana of our people. Because I have to say, you know, when I go to the museum over here and I read about how all these people in the late 19th century and early 20th century bought land over here and things like that that aren't from our iwi, you know, I have this kind of longing to say, oh, well, what are the ways that we can slowly re-establish ourselves as the mana of this place? Because it's not just the mana of Ngāti Mahu, it's the mana of Kawhia Moana.
Taharoa has had ecological devastation, but the mine has provided some benefits. He hua kua puta I tā rātou maina. Have a look at this.
The sisters invited Marae to their papakainga. The site for new whare overlooks their whānau Pina Pina Urupā, destroyed by the mine in the 70s. What did they do to your wāhi tapu?
So when they put the dam in, they flooded it. So we can't bury anyone out there anymore, and we don't have access to visit our koro anymore. So we have to stand here.
I watched the sisters stand there and cry and point to me at the lake while they told me their tūpunua, the entire urupā's underwater. What do you think about that?
Well, I can understand their grief. I can understand all of those kinds of things. When I stand up on the hills up there and I look down, I can see all my tūpuna that fought for that land, you know, and we don't know exactly where they are. So yeah, you know, there's a common grief that we all share around all of these things, but part of those are processes that were put in place a long time ago, and that we're working around.
Vienna is a former mine worker and used to drive heavy machinery. Are we walking on the bones of your ancestors?
Yes, we are. We are. The whole shoreline.
Well, how does that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable with the mining that's happening out here. It's not a nice feeling to see our home looking like this at all.
Vienna alleges she was told to move markers to extend the boundaries of the mine site, which meant they were mining urupā. At night, on the job, she says she was given a warning from her tūpuna.
I thought a flashing light on the top of my truck was going, got out. I'd still see the flashing light going around and it wasn't even on.
What do you think that meant?
Get out of here. It was a warning. It was a warning sign for, that's how I saw it as anyway. It's a warning sign to go away. Shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be working in this area.
Aotearoa agrees whānau see tūpuna in Tāharoa. He's adamant the mine has proper Māori processes in place to manage human remains. We have been told that some of the miners have been asked to basically move borders to extend where it's being mined, and it's been on urupā.
Well, no, I'd contest that because firstly, we have a few kaumātua, well, they're kaumātua now, but they were some of the first people who started working at the mine back in the 1970s. And so they know where all those wāhi tapu are. Some of them are the workers, and some of them are kaumātua from around Tāharoa who'll come in and then they'll lift those koiwi and then take them up to the different urupā that have been set aside on the block for the reinterment of these bones.
What's the company policy, or what's your hapu tikanga around that?
Well, our hapu tikanga is that if tūpuna appear, that there's people in the community who recover these and then take them to a place of reinterment, a wāhi tapu that everybody knows about.
He says allegations of markers being moved were thoroughly investigated at the time.
And we go back up and the markers are still in the same place. But one of the things that we have to understand is that the whole place is like a bit of an urupā. Now, there's bones everywhere. There's all bones over there. And so, and when we've grown up, even from when we were little, tūpuna would appear when we're walking around on the sand dune.
The mining site is rich in history. It's here the famous warlord Te Rauparaha led his Ngāti Toa iwi to invade Tainui territory. Ngāti Mahuta stopped the Ngāti Toa war party and saved their whānau.
All of us have gone through the grief of dealing with what that land holds for us. But the other side of that is the positive outcomes that our tūpuna foresaw by putting this kind of kaupapa in place. And so our job is to try and maintain that and keep that going.
Today, the warring is within the whānau, with accusations and counterclaims of colonisation.
I'd probably argue strongly against being called a corporate coloniser. You know, I'd say, yeah, no, I'm very strong on mana motuaki. We have to work towards what the majority shareholding is, and that people on the outside of that should take a close look at things like colonisation and all those things before they say we're colonising. Because if they're trying to tell us how to work our land, they're in that spot of trying to be a coloniser too.
Were you the one that called them corporate colonisers?
Oh, colonisers to the max, bro.
In this part of our show today, we hear about the pain and the passion and how the whānau will revive their Ngāti Mahuta whenua. Kia tahuri ake anō tātou.
Iron Sands applied for 13 resource consents. They want to dam and divert Wainui Stream to create a water supply to load iron sand onto ships. If the consents are not granted, they say Aotearoa will shut down.
My job is to navigate us to a place where, when I'm not around, I can rest in the ground knowing that we tried our very best to put everything in place for these people to have a continued well-being and intergenerational growth and well-being. I go into these three knowing that I have the full support of my tupuna. You know, when I walk anywhere, I know I've got thousands of my tupuna standing behind me. In the mornings when I have karakia, I see them all in front of me on the beach. When big things happen for me, I know they're standing on my waka with me. So, yeah, I'm confident in the support that I have from all the people that matter. If we can't get the consent to carry on, well, then all someone has to do is go and tell 170 people they got no more jobs now. And it's not because I want this to happen, but it'll end up being on my shoulders to say to people, oh, sorry, you have no job now, you need to move back to town.
Whānau say any mine expansion will cause more ecological damage. The scale of the current operation, they say, is already massive and messy. This is the view as they travel to their ancestral food sources. You know what's going on here?
They're mining for ore, digging as deep as they can to get all the ore out of the sand to send to overseas companies such as China, Australia, Japan, Spain. Slurry is a watery sand, so water mixed with the ore to be able to send it through pipelines under the ocean out to the ship. And then once it reaches the ship, you stop pushing out sand for the ship, and then it takes about 18 hours for them to de-water to get rid of that water that the sand went out with. I don't work here anymore. I don't want to work here anymore. Seeing what they're doing now, it's just absolute disgraceful.
You're opposed to the mine having their resource consents extended.
Definitely. Don't want an extension, we just want them to stop.
You see the lunar landscape looking like moon craters, that's not nice to see. When you see that damage on your ukai paw.
What do you want to say to the mining company?
Get out of here. Plain and simple, you've done what you've done. You've shown us that you're not going to respect us. Move along. Don't come here, steal my mokopuna's whakapapa. It's not a pretty thought, but then I look at it in its beauty anyway. I still look at it and I just remind myself of, hey, under all this bullshit, under all this humbug is still a powerful force. Hey.
Ngāti Mahuta.
It's all of us. Hey, not just us today, but yesterday, the day before, and those coming after us.
Amanda holds her taonga for kaha to continue to save her whenua and the Wainui awa.
It's my life. It's made me into who I am. We had a good life.
It looks like it's dying.
It's part of our life. This awa goes straight back up to the lake that's right next to us. and it sustained us. And it's a gift.
How's the tuna?
Mauiwi. No one eats the tuna in here anymore because it doesn't taste right, doesn't taste like it used to. That's sad. Because of the abuse of our whenua, it's squashing the Māori out of our home.
Do you eat the tuna now from the Wainui stream or any of the streams?
Oh, you know, when my cousins, the cousins that I have good relationships with, when they catch stuff, they bring it to me. You know, I'll get kai from them. White baked.
Reka?
It's all right, you know. I've tasted worse from out of the Waikato River and places like that.
If we can't shut it down, I want healthy mining. Filter the water before it gets discharged. Reuse the pond water, the filthy pond water, filter it and reuse it. Why do you have to just keep taking and taking and taking? They wouldn't be doing this if it was right next to Auckland. Too many people would see it. How would they like it if that was their backyard? Because that's our backyard. So how would they like someone just thrashing through it every day, 24/7, the machinery, the dust, you know, the hazards. So we just got to stay positive.
And that's one of the things out there was just sand dunes. The wind would blow in, because westerlies are pretty prevailing around here. So they'd blow, before, the sand would get blown all over the place.
While farmers like Mason Tahuia, who for years have watched the black sand creeping over their land, can now take a different view of the situation. It was not always so.
Well, it's more or less you feel as if you're going to lose it with it encroaching over your grass. It's a costly business if you have to plant and marram grass, buddy.
Did you ever feel discouraged and feel like giving up?
Well, I don't think so. I'm discouraged. I like to battle it.
In 2018, Iron Sands pleaded guilty to an unlawful discharge of diesel into the Wainui stream and Tasman Sea. The legal decision confirmed the spill had a significant ecological impact. Iron Sands showed a $150 million yearly return at that time. The mine was fined just over $60,000. The diesel went into the Wainui, Awa, it went out into the Tasman, Moana. How do you actually expect to convince the council and whānau who are opposed that it's a good thing to expand the business?
When that happened, that's when the new operators just first took over. And sometimes you can't mitigate against workers who sometimes make mistakes. The expansion of the business is really talking about moving the operation from one place to the next place. It's not as if that it's going to get more space. What happens is that it's a moving operation. And so most of the time it's been operating in the southern side of the property.
Iron Sands was last run by Australian mining company BlueScope until Taharo C Block bought 60% of the mine in 2017. The whānau questioned the block's management priorities.
We are the owners of the mine, and we've done worse than those Australians. We've done worse, and that's the disappointment.
Do you want to shut down that mine?
We want responsible practices. We want our people to be treated better than dogs.
Aotearoa says the mining operation will end eventually.
There's only a set amount of resource that you can recover, and so in order to understand that, we have to create an investment program that allows us, at the end of the life of the operation, that we can still have an income for the landowners that's equivalent to what they receive now. And part of the understanding with the operators is that there's a restoration and rehabilitation process that has to take place, and it has to be returned and restored to the same condition as it was before the operations took place, which is really restoring it back to sand dunes.
Verna is working on restoration and revitalisation plans. So Verna, we're here at your marae in Maketu.
Why are you here? Got a coastal restoration conference here. It's a national one, and it's just something we need to be involved in.
So what specifically are the things that you want to learn from here?
Wetland planting and coupling like shrubs or bushes with food. Anything that can help us revive our whenua.
Disappointment and determination keep them all from giving up.
Why am I doing it?
Aroha mai.
When my dad was dying, he said to me, "Don't forget about Taharo. I know you're busy, but don't forget about Taharo." I mean, I was here till I had to go to school. That's why I do it, because my children didn't see the landscape that we knew. It was still beautiful. The forest was still beautiful. My grandchildren just see shit. They see hell.
When you look here at the whenua now, what do you think about?
My dad. Yeah, our life. We had nothing, but we had everything. Now it's like everyone's got everything, but really inside, it's a whole lot of nothing to me.
Why do you think you need to share your really... Because it hurts. It hurts to see what's happening to our home. It's a big mamae I carry for what they're doing out there. Why were you crying before?
I just feel everything. I look at the lake. Yeah, and it just brings back memories, that's all. He was a strong man, a very humble man. Yeah, he was just my dad. It's not always about you, it's about all of us. That's the biggest message he always sung when that I can remember. Just remember, look after our wai and our kai, and you look after your people.
How do you see Aotearoa in 100 years' time?
Well, in 100 years' time, I see sand dunes again. I see our whānau going back there to ride horses again across the dunes. I see more and more of our land around here in our rohe belonging and coming back into our ownership. So that's our long-term plan and being successful.
Look after the wai, look after the kai. E mihi ana te ngākau ki a koe, Jodi Ihaka i te pai o tērā pūrongo. That's Marae for this week e Hoama. Kia ora tātou katoa. Ko te reo, te take.